woman can be all over you one day and then boom, detached because you thought you could play in her face. And if you was really toxic, then the further she gets away from you, the more she gonna glow up without you. But chances are you couldn't appreciate her presence until you felt her absence. So it's gonna seem like this glow is brand new and really it's not. It's just not being dimmed by your darkness anymore. So what you're seeing now from the outside looking in is just her returning home to herself. The version that she would have been if you and all your demons hadn't come along, intruded and robbed her of her radiance. And I'm not saying that she's perfect, but you know she wasn't the problem. You know that attitude that you always said she had with you was just a reflection of the stress that was caused by you. You even tried to convince her that she had all of these trust issues caused by trauma in her past, when in reality, she just got an intuition that was sensing you were about to make her repeat it. And you said she was always just being negative and trying to find something wrong, but truth is, you put her in survival mode, and she still knew that something wasn't right. Because no woman actually enjoys yelling and arguing, being suspicious, or going into fight or flight mode all the time. Like, that woman wanted to be soft with you, but first she needed you to make that safe for her. But you didn't. Instead, you let some moments of pride cause you a lifetime of regret. Because now you realize there are some women you're just not gonna find twice. And that's why I tell you, look, if you cannot appreciate that woman's light when it's warming you, don't try spinning the block when it's blinding you either. When a man has never had a woman like you, it's hard for him to understand you. Like, if you've been investing in yourself for years, that's taking you to a whole new emotional tax bracket. So it's never gonna work with a man who's still on Section 8. And I'm talking about a man who's only been interested in women who are willing to change themselves to please him and tolerate his disrespect to keep him and abandon their boundaries to accommodate him and even shrink themselves to make him feel bigger. Yeah, he may be attracted to the idea of you, but the reality of you is going to feel overwhelming for him when really you're just overqualified for him. He'll call you difficult because you require direct communication instead of decoding passive-aggressive behavior. He'll say that you're hard to get along with because you're hard to manipulate. And he'll say that you're too much when he feels himself drowning in your depth because he's used to shallow experiences. Because a man can't recognize quality if he's only ever chased after counterfeits. But don't make the mistake of trying to teach him how to be your man either. Because you shouldn't have to teach a man how to be consistent. You shouldn't have to teach him how to reciprocate your effort. Like, you deserve to be a man's partner, not his professor. So stop thinking you're the problem because you outgrew that man before he ever met you. Your expansion is either going to inspire his growth or trigger his retreat. Either way, don't slow down so he can catch up. And don't try to help him up when he hasn't even helped himself. That's only going to keep you close enough for him to pull you back down. No, keep your requirements where they are. Let him go back to the low standards he's been equally yoked with. Remember, while she begging you to act right, there's another man begging her to let him try. You over there playing with the woman that you got, while there's another dude praying that he gets one exactly like her. And she won't even entertain him, which may be why you've gotten so comfortable. But that complacency could turn into a vacancy real quick. Then his prayers are going to get answered while your calls to get her back get ignored. Because you should never mistake a woman's loyalty with the inability to leave. And don't feel like her persistence to build a life with you is some type of proof she can't live without you. Again, it's not that she has you competing with other men. In fact, your only opponent is how much better she can do on her own. But if you think you can sleep on a once-in-a-lifetime woman and no other man is going to want her, you in for a rude awakening. And I know she done forgave you several times, but every good girl has her breaking point. Every tear that she sheds about the way that you treat her is just watering the seeds of her detachment. And every frustration she feels about the promises you don't keep is just fertilizing the acceptance that you don't have what it takes to keep her. Yes, every relationship has its rough patches, but your patterns of leaving her hanging is only teaching her to live without you. So don't feel like just because your woman loves deeply, she can't leave you permanently. In fact, the heart that fights the hardest to make things work tends to be the hardest to reach when it realizes it was fighting alone from the beginning. The number of women who are not interested in entertaining any man right now is shocking. Y'all have really turned women all the way off. And it's not that women have given up on love, but they have given up on convincing men that they're worthy of it. Like, they don't prefer solitude, but they do prefer their sanity over dead-end situationships. And they aren't rejecting of partnership in general, but they are rejecting projects who try to repackage their performative potential as being a work in progress. And no, it's not that they're difficult. They've just experienced the difficulty of trying to breathe in toxic environments, so they'd rather exhale alone than to suffocate with the wrong man. So contrary to popular belief, a lot of women are open to being loved correctly, but it's either that or they want to be left alone completely. No in between, no second chances. And no, it's not this epidemic of women having unrealistic expectations. It's an epidemic of women finally having realistic assessments of what men have to offer. Of course, good men do exist. But can we finally acknowledge the exhaustion of trying to sift through the men who don't want love, they want help, or an unpaid therapist, or someone to mother them, or an emotional punching bag to project all their insecurities onto, or a man who says that he wants a wife, but he doesn't want to be a husband. And if he does marry that woman, she just becomes another married single mother. Like, I'm just being real, not trying to start a gender war, because the real gender war is when a woman is left to fight for a relationship alone and ends up losing herself trying to keep a man she should have been left. So at some point, we gotta admit that today's women aren't too independent or bitter, they're tired of trying to build a home with a man they gotta protect their energy from, instead of a man who can match their energy, whom they feel at home with. No matter what, never again allow a man to convince you that you're crazy or insecure for having a natural reaction to his hurtful behavior. He's only gonna call you that because it's easier to label your reaction than to address his action that caused it. Like, he'll disappear overnight, sometimes for days, then call you possessive because you ask where he's been. He'll act thirsty for other women, then call you jealous when you're repulsed by the affection that he tries to show you. Or he'll repeatedly break promises, then call you disrespectful when you stop treating him with the respect that his decisions made you lose for him. This is manipulation, inducing hypervigilance through inconsistency, then labeling you paranoid, triggering emotional intensity through a boundary violation, then saying that you are overreacting, or forcing repeated explanations through a selective comprehension, then naming it nagging. And if you're not careful, he'll eventually get you to gaslight yourself into thinking the real problem is your trust issues and your mood swings, when that's just your spiritual immune system fighting against the infection of his narcissism. But it's the same old tricks, just a different clown. He creates the wound, blames you for bleeding. He plants seeds of doubt, then mocks the garden of insecurity that grows. Because truth is, a broken man will deliberately push your boundaries just to test how much you'll tolerate, then use your eventual reaction as proof that you were the problem all along. Like it's the perfect crime. Commit the offense, prosecute the witness. But what he calls your overreactions are really just your standard speaking in the language that his lack of integrity can't silence. Because the only thing that would be crazy about your response to being hurt is if you believed you shouldn't have one. Sometimes you gotta let a man who was never on your level to begin with go back to what he's used to. Because losing a man who couldn't properly love you isn't a loss, it's alignment. Like with you, he lied to you once, and you refuse to believe anything he said from that point forward without proof. But with another girl, he'll lie to her 100 times and she'll turn a blind eye because she needs a little help with the bills. So let her have him. And he wanted you to be loyal while he acted single. Then played victim whenever you went no contact so he can go back to the streets he wanted so badly. But she will gladly stay in his rotation while answering to him about every move she makes because she's afraid of being alone. Let her have him. And he was willing to lose you rather than fix the situation. But she was willing to pretend the situation never happened, beg him to stay, even though she knew that he was dead wrong. Yeah, they belong together. And don't feel bad about letting him go because he didn't give you any reason to stay, nor make any effort to keep you. Like you can't put a pig in a 5-star restaurant, then get surprised when it doesn't have table manners. Like the smart thing is to just take it back to the pig pen where it belongs. And that's not even to be mean, but all of that sabotage he did to the relationship, all of that taking you for granted, was really him just missing his natural habitat. You wanted to build something special over the long term. But he's used to taking relationship breaks anytime he gets tired of pretending he's faithful. And you wanted a deep connection, but he's used to dysregulating his woman's central nervous system. And maybe that's fine for him to do with some other woman who doesn't know her worth and doesn't hold him accountable. But as for you, stop trying to train these men to treat you like you matter and just accept whenever he's out of his league to begin with. Like if your standards are just too high, don't hold your breath for him to change. Release him so he can find happiness at an altitude where he can breathe more easily. Letting go is hard, but staying with a man who makes you re-explain every single day how you want to be loved is draining. You tell him you need consistency, he says you're being needy. You tell him just keep it real with you. He keeps spoon-feeding you half-truths hoping that you don't connect the dots. You tell him how to do just the little things that'll make you smile, and he acts like you telling him to turn water into wine. Look, if a man can remember the words to his favorite song and how many points LeBron scored yesterday, he should be able to remember that you like date nights, love letters, and flowers. I understand he can't read your mind, but you can't keep reteaching a man who doesn't want to apply the lesson. Because a man who truly values you is not going to turn you from a lover girl into a lecturer. He's going to be taking notes from day one. But you keep repeating yourself as if there aren't men out here who will hear you the first time and then act on it. Now, I get it. Some men don't come in knowing how to love because they never seen it growing up. But a man who genuinely wants to keep you will learn. I mean, if he can talk all tough about all of the things he'll do to keep another man from hurting you, he should be able to swallow his pride to keep his ignorance from losing you. But if you have to repeatedly ask a man to love you right, it's time to let him go and love somebody else wrong. Because asking for something more than once is already too close to begging, and there are too many men out here ready to invest their all into you for you to be settling for some other dude's spare change.